Some country trophies glitter forever. Others end up locked in pawnshop glass, their golden light traded for rent money or a tank of gas. Today we dig through the cobwebbed corners of award history and pull out 20 names that once echoed across arenas, but now drift like tumbleweeds past closed honky-tonks. Each took home a shiny CMA, ACM, or even Grammy statuette, proof that the industry once bet big on their futures. Yet somewhere between curtain calls and the next big trend, the phone stopped ringing, and their stories slid into rumor-ridden back roads. Tonight's trip isn't just nostalgia, it's detective work. We'll sift through label feuds, backroom deals, tabloid flings, coke-fueled studio marathons, surprise activism, and heartbreaking illnesses that rewrote careers overnight. Stick around, because the final twist might change how you look at your own faded vinyl collection and the fragile promises carved into country gold, forever echoes. Jean Pruitt leads our forgotten parade, stepping out in a satin blue gown that once dazzled the Opry. In 1973, satin sheets knocked Conway and Loretta off the charts, and Nashville christened her the next torch and twang matriarch. She pocketed award nominations, bought a small farm, and imagined decades of encores. But the boom in slick, urban cowboy production left her traditional sound marooned. Rather than chase fads, Jean disappeared into tomato vines and okra rows, hosting canning workshops where fans sometimes recognized her laugh before her song. An entire generation now knows her best recipe for peach jam, but not the chorus that paid for her acreage. Sylvia sprinted down the opposite lane. When Nobody detonated in 1982, her glossy, synth-dusted twang outraged purists, yet earned her ACM Female Vocalist of the Year. She posed against neon backdrops, toured suburban malls, and convinced an entire MTV generation that country could sparkle like bubblegum. Then a tidal wave of hat-act cowboys swept the charts, and programmers quietly slid her discs behind the new imports. Sylvia retreated, studied life coaching, and began guiding strangers toward dreams of their own, rarely mentioning that she once sold out Madison Square Garden on a weeknight. Crystal Gayle drifted somewhere between those two extremes. Her caramel-smooth crossover hits scored Grammys, but as the 90s roared in with raw voices and grunge culture, her soft lounge texture suddenly sounded vintage. She trimmed her famous floor-length hair but never her set list, stubbornly crooning "Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue" at heritage festivals, while streaming services filed her under easy listening. The mainstream recipe had changed, and there was no longer room for satin ballads on spicy radio menus. Billy Swan strutted into 1974, armed with a Farfisa organ riff and 3 magic words, "I can help." The tune whooshed over genre fences, topped every chart in sight, and flashed Swan's smile onto worldwide television. A Grammy nod followed, but so did a creeping realization. Nashville expects lightning twice. Swan preferred tinkering behind the console, so the suits moved on when the follow-up stalled. Today, his trophy sits in a Mississippi closet, a souvenir of pop's brief open door. Mickey Gilley discovered the cost of movies exaggerating reality. His Houston nightclub spawned the urban cowboy craze, and awards rained down. Yet fame arrived wearing a barroom grin. It stayed just long enough to leave him bruised. A stair-step fall in 2009 damaged vertebrae. A 2018 rollover crash shattered bones. Nerve pain throttled his piano swagger. Gilley still toured in braces, signing autographs with a joke about owing too much money to quit. The effort kept him beloved but gradually off playlists, a honky-tonk legend trapped inside a fragile body. Johnny Lee, Gilley's partner in cinematic legend, rode Lookin' for Love straight onto the ACM stage and into late-night punchlines. Fast success fed late-night habits, and industry whispers about coke binges and broken promises trailed him like road dust. Rehab stints trimmed chart time, and Lee's spotlight dimmed to casino lights and nostalgia cruises, though his voice still rips through that opening line like it never aged. Then there's Bailey and the Boys. The harmony-rich trio critics predicted would replace Alabama at award podiums. 5 top 10 hits couldn't stop MCA from chasing newer sounds, and internal burnout splintered the band. Kathy Bailey nursed vocal injuries. Michael Bonagura pivoted to family life. Alan LaBeouf took Broadway gigs. They reunite occasionally for fairground sets, singing 3-part hooks that once hinted at stadium dreams now reduced to lawn chair memories. Their cautionary chorus forms a single lesson. In country music, momentum stalls the instant a record label smells even a whiff of hesitation, injury, or age. And when that happens, the last verse fades long before the applause in your head ever stops. Johnny Rodriguez breaks the silence with a gunshot that echoed far beyond his ranch gate. In 1998, he mistook a late-night intruder for danger and pulled the trigger. The man fell, and Rodriguez found himself in shackles, facing a murder charge that tabloids devoured. A jury eventually cleared him, but radio programmers avoid stories that spook advertisers. The pioneer of bilingual country watched bookings evaporate faster than court fees piled up. He retreated to Texas dance halls, singing ballads that still switch languages mid-phrase, a bittersweet act of rebellion. Awards can't shield reputations. Ask T.G. Shepard, the smooth-talking hitmaker whose run of 16 number ones gave him an Entertainer of the Year aura. Rumor insisted he gambled fortunes on high-stakes deals and romantic entanglements linked to rock and roll royalty. When his label folded, creditors knocked. Health scares followed, including a heart procedure that forced him off the road. By the time he returned, country radio had traded velvet baritones for bro-country chants. If Shepard's saga feels messy, David Frizzell and Shelley West's is bittersweet. Their duet, You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma, swept award shows, yet their professional chemistry ignited private gossip. Industry insiders whispered about on-the-road entanglements and backstage blow-ups. Both denied anything beyond creative sparks, but tension frayed tour schedules. West's world shattered when her mother, star Dottie West, died in a fiery crash, and she stepped away to grieve. Frizzell's solo record stalled without her harmony, and the pair's trophies now sit on different mantles 1,000 miles apart, reminding fans that 2 voices can sound inseparable while 2 lives drift forever out of harmony. Their reunion rumors surface every summer, but the phone never truly rings. Sometimes the cruelest villain isn't scandal, but biology. Holly Dunn melted hearts with Daddy's Hands and pocketed ACM trophies. Yet in 2016, a rare ovarian sickness silenced the voice that once filled TNN studios. She spent her final months hosting small gospel circles, joking that heaven surely had a better tour bus. Fans mourned, but the mainstream cycle had already moved on to younger balladeers. KT Oslin lit an entirely different fire when she won 3 Grammys in 1988. With lyrics celebrating mature womanhood that dared to own desire in a youth-obsessed genre. Decades later, Parkinson's disease shook her signature contralto. When she tested positive for a virus in 2020 and slipped away in an assisted living facility, headlines were brief, overshadowed by a chaotic news year. The woman who once made 40-something feel fearless vanished quietly behind surgical masks and lockdown doors. Razzie Bailey's downfall was slower, like one of his swampy double-A-side singles. 5 number ones in 1981 should have placed him on cruise control, but a string of heart complications drained his stamina. By the time surgery cleared his arteries, he found that playlist managers had cleared his slots. Bailey spent later days operating a modest studio in rural Tennessee, mentoring newbies who never quite believed the gray-bearded producer once outsold Alabama. Illness steals more than health. It robs momentum like a pickpocket, and when the spotlight blinks back on, it rarely seeks the same face. These 3 remind us that even gold records can't drown out a doctor's diagnosis, and applause doesn't echo inside hospital walls. Their stories hover over every backstage prayer circle where a singer rubs sore vocal cords and wonders how long miracles truly last. If Nashville ever staged a rogues gallery, Tom Paul Glazer would lean against the exit swinging a half-lit grin. crowned ACM vocal group champ with his brothers and hailed a ringleader of the outlaw movement, Glazer preferred flinging elbows at Music Row power brokers. Tales circulate of all-night sessions drenched in bourbon and lines of coke on mixing consoles, punctuated by lawyers begging him to behave. When the outlaw fad cooled, labels remembered every broken contract clause, and Glazer's phone grew eerily silent. He died in 2013, middle finger still metaphorically raised. Lacey J. Dalton's fight was wilder in a literal sense. After earning ACM Top New Female honors for her whiskey-smoked howl, she channeled that fury into protecting Nevada's Mustangs. The Bureau of Land Management called them overpopulated. Dalton called them living anthems of the West. Court hearings, protests, and a brief arrest followed. Radio executives dislike headlines about federal lawsuits, and her airplay dwindled. Dalton still hauls hay at dawn, strumming benefit concerts while politicians shuffle paperwork under fluorescent lights. Janie Fricka represents the quiet rebel. 2 straight CMA female vocalist trophies in the early 80s should have guaranteed perpetual superstardom. Instead, Fricka resisted the rowdy, male-driven hat act wave, sticking to silky ballads that programmers labeled outdated. She started her own label, cut Spanish versions of her hits, and toured state fairs on her own dime rather than watch her catalog gather dust. The mainstream industry barely noticed, but Fricka claims independence tastes better than chart champagne. Freedom over charts. Not every retreat involves scandal or crusade. Sometimes the industry simply slams the door and changes the locks. Charlie McClain felt it click in 1989. Years earlier, she'd charmed award voters with Who's Cheatin' Who, flashing a breezy smile that hid chronic stage fright. Whispered panic attacks before television tapings fueled rumors she might bolt mid-song. When a new crop of powerhouse belters crowded playlists, McClain bowed out gracefully, choosing a quiet life-breeding champion puppies rather than wrestling anxiety under spotlights. Jody Miller traveled an even stranger orbit. She snatched a Grammy in 1966 for Queen of the House, flipped folk pop into country gold, then spent the 70s collecting nominations like Souvenir Spoons. Yet Miller never shook off skeptics who branded her too pop for hardcore twang and too twangy for AM radio. Tired of tug-of-war, she embraced gospel circuits, buying a ranch and calling the Bible Belt home. Awards gathered dust beside hymnals while mainstream memory rewrote the genre without her. Barbara Fairchild rode the same carousel. Her Teddy Bear song earned Grammy nods and sold 1 million singles, but critics dismissed it as novelty syrup. Determined to prove depth, Fairchild pushed for edgier material only to face label execs fixated on safe radio candy. When they balked, she packed up and joined Branson's family entertainment scene, later co-founding a ministry that turned her stage into a pulpit. Fairchild's trophy sparkles under church lights as she testifies that fame fades but small mercies don't. Her journey, like McClain's and Miller's, reminds us that a standing ovation can feel hollow if it drowns out your own heartbeat, and sometimes the bravest encore is whispered only to close friends. True fulfillment. Before we close the curtain, listen for the faint echoes that still wander down modern playlists. Crystal Gayle's satin voice sometimes slips onto late-night soft rock stations, reminding insomniacs that brown eyes can still melt. Yet outside Christmas light tours and heritage festivals, the woman who once snatched a Grammy from pop giants plays mainly to lifelong fans who remember her ankle-dust hair as a cultural moment. Johnny Rodriguez, even after the courtroom storm, resurfaced briefly this decade with an indie album financed by diehards. Its bilingual ballads a stubborn reminder of boundaries he shattered. Jean Pruett appeared on a cooking channel frying catfish while humming Satin Sheets, and social media exploded for a day, proof that nostalgia can trend if someone sweet enough invites it to dinner. Across the map, county fairs still book Janie Fricka tribute acts, and dive bars offer two-step lessons to I Can Help, but these sparks rarely ignite new careers. Syndicated radio prefers the safe glow of Garth retrospectives, leaving our 20 award winners to rely on local newspapers and YouTube rabbit holes for legacy. Every so often, a contemporary singer drops their name in an acceptance speech, and award show crews scramble for archival footage that may or may not exist in HD. Their voices linger in thrift store vinyl crates, scratched but undefeated. Spin those discs and you'll hear the hunger, the innocence, the daring experiments that once moved entire arenas. You might even wonder how many current chart toppers will survive similar blackout years once algorithms decide their vintage and labels stop returning calls. The answer hides in every dusty award case. Fame rents its space by the month, but melodies pay the mortgage on eternity. So what do we take from this ghost parade of gold-plated dreams? First, that awards are snapshots, not passports. They freeze a moment of brilliance but cannot guarantee safe passage through fickle decades of fashion, radio politics, or personal catastrophe. Second, that every trophy carries invisible fine print. Stay healthy, stay profitable, stay marketable, and above all, stay young. And none of those clauses can truly be met forever. Yet there's hope tucked in these vanished careers. Gene Pruitt's garden, Lacey J. Dalton's Wild Horse Ranch, and Razzie Bailey's homemade studio reveal a sweeter currency than standing ovations. They prove art can outlive its market, that a melody is still a melody even when the stadium lights click off. Play their records, stream their grainy concert clips, teach a chorus of nobody to a new crowd, and you'll feel a strange electricity. The past reminding the present that authenticity never ages. Streaming might dominate today's charts, but algorithms have short memories. They chase spikes, not roots. That means rediscovery usually starts offline, sparked by a crate-digging teenager or a playlist curator hunting something raw for a road trip montage. The moment a forgotten chorus lands on a Netflix soundtrack or a viral TikTok dance, suddenly the old guard blooms again. If only for 90 seconds of swipe culture. Just ask the estate of Keith Whitley or the grandchildren of Jim Croce. Both camps witnessed quiet catalog surges when a single sync turned curiosity into currency. Imagine if a director dropped Sylvia's candy-coated Nobody into a retro rom-com. Spotify searches jump, television bookers phone her agent, and a new generation thinks they've uncovered a secret treasure. The song never changed. The context did. Our 20 award winners wait for that same lightning, their work uploaded quietly by fan accounts, gathering comments in Portuguese, Korean, or Swahili. Proof that heartbreak and fiddle riffs travel farther than press releases ever did. Consider the vinyl revival. Independent shops now host listening parties where DJs spin deep cuts from 1978 as if they were just released last Friday. On those nights, Billy Swan's organ riff thunders through a warehouse speaker system, and people who weren't alive for the Carter administration shout every lyric. Nostalgia turns to discovery, discovery to obsession, obsession to merch sales and festival slots. Sunrise brings new followers to dusty Facebook pages, and the cycle of resurrection wheels on. Country music, maybe more than any genre, thrives on lineage. Storytellers handing verses down like heirloom quilts. The Opry stage lives for surprise cameos. A contemporary star steps aside, and here comes Janie Fricke in silver fringe, voice still precise as a church bell. Phones rise, the crowd roars, and for 3 minutes the timeline collapses. No algorithm can fake that lightning bolt. Whether it leads to a chart re-entry, or just a glow in the soul of 4,000 witnesses hardly matters. The legacy passes to fresh hearts who might carry it further than even the original award show ever dreamed. So if you ever stumble across a battered greatest hits CD at a yard sale, consider dropping $1. Bring that music home, blast it during a late-night drive, and tag the artist on social media. Your single post might nudge an algorithm, spark a booking agent's curiosity, or simply remind the performer that their stories still resonate. In a business wired to discard yesterday's kings and queens, Every replay is an act of quiet rebellion, and maybe the beginning of someone's long overdue encore. Finally, remember your own playlists. One day today's buzzed-about newcomer may trade viral fame for a fishing boat or a quieter fight far from TikTok metrics. When that happens, dig them out again. Give them 30 minutes of undivided listening, just as we have given these 20 award winners tonight. Because forgetting artists is easy, rediscovering them is an adventure. And every adventure starts with pressing play, closing your eyes and letting an almost lost voice remind you how wide and unpredictable the human heart can really be. Until next time, keep the turntable spinning and the memories alive. There's still gold in forgotten grooves, waiting patiently. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.